I have a question. If the Chronicle Cosmic Map is in the perspective of the Titans, then the shape changes, so order would be the top of the oval. Does this change how you view the cosmic chart? No. The cosmic chart... I think people... I don't know. I think people... And maybe even me... misunderstand the cosmic chart. The cosmic chart is not... People want so badly to look at a chart and to have it just tell the story, to have it make sense. But here's the problem, chat, is that you can't. They've tried very hard. It's very difficult to achieve. Both the Titans and the brokers have tried it. But the natural tendency in your mind as a human being is to try to bring order to something that maybe doesn't have a defined shape. You understand what I'm saying? I mean that things and forces in the cosmos bleed together and blend together such so that the distinction between them becomes nigh impossible to understand. And so the methods of categorization that order expresses is just another way of trying to categorize and understand the grand thing. And it doesn't mean that it's in every way that it's wrong. It just means that it's a limited perspective, because I feel like what Firim kind of says is the more that I tried to understand the first ones, the less that I understand the first ones. The more that I look, the less I get. And Firim says that when he allowed his vision to kind of loosen and allow his focus to kind of drift, that's when he made revelations. That's when he realized, in my interpretation, how linked everything really is. And Firim began to understand, I think, that this concept of division that we have between these forces is maybe not necessarily correct. And that the way in which we separate chaos and order and life and death into their own little segments, is that really true? Is that really even accurate? Or does it all bleed together into a confluence that is creation, that is Azeroth, or is it bleeding from it out into this multitude of colors, like a rainbow, in each section of the rainbow is like a different force, so to speak. Different colors, stuff like that, right? We see color a lot in World of Warcraft. So I think when we look at the cosmology map, if we look at it in terms of like maybe in a way identifying certain things, like the thing about the cosmology chart is it doesn't really capture nuance very well, like at all. So all of the old gods are just associated with the void. All of them. Like, all the Titans are just associated with order. Well, we know that's not the case. Like, Sargeras is the image for both order and for chaos. And you're like, But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure if he goes on either of those. It almost seems like he goes on light. And like he shouldn't be on order or chaos. There's just some things about those charts. I think that they help bridge the gap between our understanding and potentially the understanding of those who are coming up with those charts. Isn't the cosmology map made from the Titans' point of view, or am I mistaken here? No, that's correct as far as we understand it. But that's not the only cosmology chart we have. So I think what people kind of forget is that both of the depictions of the cosmology of the universe that we have, both of them are given from the perspective of beings who define and align themselves with the power that is order. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at the Titan one on the left, the Titan one on the right, or the Broker one on the left. They both have some things about them that are correct, but they both have things about them that are incorrect as well. And I believe that that incorrectness is based out of their limited perspective. How could you expect beings of order, whether it's Titanic or whatever, how could you expect them to perceive and illustrate the cosmos from any other point of view? See, that's the thing, is that, like, they don't. And so you only see the cosmology very separated from this limited perspective. So they do share some commonality. For instance, one thing that I think is actually maybe different for the broker chart, maybe it's just illustrated a different way, is you see how these rings are overlapping each other? This is important because I think this illustrates that inherent interconnectivity between those forces. Unlike the Titan one, which kind of initially gives the impression of things being separate in their own little spheres, you start to notice that there are bands that stretch through multiple spheres. There are bands that move from one and into the other. And although it's illustrated in a different way, they may actually be the same in that regard, where there's kind of some connections being associated here, but still kind of separate. The broker one, I think, kind of does, it just illustrates it in like a different way, where they're connected, but they're overlapping instead. And so I think, hypothetically, I could be wrong, I'm not like a big geometry guy, but I think that you could collapse this structure of rings into a much smaller structure. In fact, you might be able to collapse them all into almost one ring, even with how they're connected with one another. I kind of think of it as like a key ring kind of situation, or like the discs of Norganon, kind of like strung together through some type of binding. And if all of these rings were to move inward simultaneously, perhaps you could collapse the system into one or two spheres instead of 6, right? But then of course we have the big one in the middle, the big mamma jamma, which is creation, I think. And the cycle of creation and destruction between Azeroth and Argus is what necessitates it. It's necessary for everything else to happen. That's what I think. That these wheels of life and death and order and chaos, these things don't move without the cosmic soul at the core of the great cycle. And I think, yeah, it's depicted similarly in both. The difference, I guess, on the Titan one is that they show you some of potentially the binding mechanisms that are being used to keep reality in its own little pocket. Can I ask you guys a question? Of course I can. That's what we're here for, right? So, in the Shadowlands, you have Zereth Mortis, right? It's this realm where the deities and the realms were all built and they stem out from, or maybe it's the final key, the final piece in the construction of the Shadowlands, keystone versus cornerstone, which is debated among scholars. And I was just thinking, if Zereth Mortis is in the plane of death, and like linked to the plane of death, and that's where the entities that the eternal ones are from and all that stuff, then wouldn't the assumption be that it would be like the dream would be like that too, where the dream is the realms of, connects out to the realms of life, and somewhere in there, is a Zereth Vitae, right? And inside of that realm, you have other gods, right? Like say the wild gods. Or you could even say, maybe Eonar, Elune, right? So what I'm doing is I'm associating deities with a plane and with a Zereth, subsequently, whatever the word would be. So what about order? So one thing that I've talked about before is Where is the plane of order? And what deities would be found in it? Isn't the assumption that it would be the Titans? And that Zereth Ordis is connected with the realm of order, or realms of order? And that's where the gods of order come from? Would Zereth Ordis not be reality? Does that mean that our planet and its moons are in the realm of order? And if that's true, does that not make the Titans the supreme deities of this realm? Like, what I'm kind of suggesting is that we're kind of told that reality exists in its own area, and that the Titans, and presumably the realms of order and death and life, are separate. But if that's not true, and we are in the realms of order, that's a big, big problem. And it also suggests the possibility that these other forces have not been infiltrating reality for the reason that we think they are. Think about this. If Azeroth isn't a Titan, this Constellar type being that they appear as on the seat, then maybe she isn't from here. Maybe the idea that she grew inside our planet is not true. Because if she's a deity of creation and potentially light, she's not from the realm of order. Which opens the door for the possibility that there is a deity that was stolen from where it should belong and taken into a realm that is not its home realm and imprisoned. This world is a prison. I think that's the point of fate too then, no? Ordering things as they should flow to fuel the entire universe, no? Not necessarily the entire universe. Have you ever looked at this map as a two-dimensional representation of something that's three-dimensional in reality? Yes, something that I've proposed many a time on my stream, and I do believe that that is the case. This entire discussion has been me describing why these maps are a little, deceiving, and why you just have to be careful because the perspective is extremely limited. So creation and destruction were imprisoned by order. Yeah, that's what I think. And I think that without creation and destruction, what is anything else? See, we attribute light as the creator force and void as its antithesis, which basically collided with it and caused untold cataclysmic explosions that apparently birthed realms into existence. That's what we're told. But I can't be the only one who doesn't want to believe that. Right? In this universe filled with gods and deities and powers unimaginable, we're supposed to believe it was just some scientific Big Bang? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy that it was just a collision of light and void, primordial light and void that existed before time. I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. How can you have a deity like Azeroth, who is apparently the most powerful of anything we've ever fucking seen, and then we come across Argus, who is a bristling, bright world soul, powerful, clearly, more than all the other titans of the Pantheon of Order, besides maybe one. And we're supposed to expect she's just another titan?